The Patterson Foundation
strengthens people, organizations, and communities by focusing on issues that address mutual aspirations,
foster wide participation, and encourage learning and sharing.
Welcome to Aspirations to Actions, a Beyond the Blog podcast of the Patterson Foundation, also known as TPF. Hi, I'm Alicia Chalmers, a TPF consultant, and your host for today's conversation, which is going to make us all think about our role in making the world a better place. We know that people nationwide share a desire to connect through shared beliefs and aspirations. But the questions are, how might we create a new civic path forward that restores our belief in one another and our nation? How might we build together even amid our differences and be agents of hope in our community? Joining me today to explore an innovative, community-driven way for people, organizations, and communities to answer questions like these, reflect on what it means to strengthen relationships, and envision a more inclusive and responsive community is Menal Khanna and Michael Prihoda with the Harwood Institute for Public Innovation. Menal and Michael, welcome to the podcast. Menal and Michael, as we get started, I think it's important for our audience to know that the Patterson Foundation has been working with Rich Harwood, President and CEO, founder of the Harwood Institute for Public Innovation, and his team since 2012. At the Patterson Foundation, we truly believe in the work of the Harwood Institute and so recognize the value of providing time and space for people to learn and share together, connecting, using the Harwood Institute techniques and practices. Michael, as someone who is amplifying the Institute's work, reach, and key messages across different media and across America, how would you share with our audience what the Harwood Institute is and what exactly the practice and approach is of the Institute?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us, Alicia. Happy to jump in here. So I think the Harwood Institute's a nonpartisan nonprofit founded over 35 years ago. Rich, our president and founder, has been with us from the very beginning, still leads the organization today. And we're focused primarily on what it means to make community a common enterprise. So how can communities come together to discover their shared aspirations and then take action on those aspirations together to move forward in a more hopeful way? And that shows up in a lot of different ways in our work. We do really deep community initiatives. Some of them we've even done in partnership with the Patterson Foundation in these past few years. So we're really excited about those. We also have a school that trains and equips people. And I know a lot of people from the Patterson Foundation's network have gone through different parts of our school, whether it be the Public Innovators Labs or the Harwood Catalytic Guide program. And then Rich, for the past couple of years, and we just extended it recently, has been running a civic campaign, the Campaign for the New Civic Path, which is all about trying to spread this message that we don't need more divisive politics in America if we're going to move forward together. What we need is a new civic path that brings people together around a way to take action on the issues that matter to us in a depoliticized way, which is why we call it a new civic path. And the other part of your question, which is sort of what underlies all of this work for us, is what Rich has come to call the turning outward approach and practice. And put simply, we can dig into it more if you want, but just sort of in a nutshell, turning outward is the idea that we need to put our communities and not our conference rooms at the center of what we do. So we need to be looking outward at what matters to the people we're trying to serve, what do they really care about, and then calibrating our approach, our action, our response to those aspirations, if we're really going to move forward together and in a more hopeful way. So more to say if you'd like, but that's a start.
Great. Thanks, Michael. I've been lucky enough to attend 2 Harwood Public Innovator Labs since 2012, and I'm excited I'll be starting the Catalytic Guide training this summer. So appreciate the work and you clarifying that. And for you, Menal, as someone who describes herself as a people-first leader rooted in authenticity, intentionality, and inclusivity, how do you see those values show up in a way the Institute approaches its work with people and communities across our nation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this really just builds off of what Michael was saying, as everything being rooted in the turning outward approach. It's rooted in our campaign. It's rooted in our work with communities across the country through initiatives. It's even rooted in just how we engage with everyone, variety of where all walks of life and how they've come to know the Harwood Institute is really, we meet people where they're at. We don't have a certain cell or a certain thing that we want people to engage us with. Our first question is, how can we support you? How can we support your community? And that is a way of interacting with folks that is refreshing, but also so value aligned with how I approach my own work and my values. A great example of that is when, we get on a call with a community member that just has heard of us, we really ask, what are you wrestling with? What in your community has been a challenge? What in your community are you looking to address? What are your community's aspirations? And then how can we foster a conversation and then action and build that ripple effect of change so it doesn't feel like this big strategic plan, but something that is approachable and accessible to communities, which is really important, that accessibility piece. So we do that in small, small ways of just how we interact with the community and our partners every single day, but also it's so rooted in our deeper work with our community initiatives, with how we we want the communities to lead the change. It's not Rich saying you need to do X, Y, Z. It's the actions of the teams that really drive that work forward.
That's great. I really appreciate meeting people where they're at and most importantly, not arriving with the answers. And it's something that the Harwood Institute and the team like you and Michael do really well. So thank you for sharing that. I think we could all agree that, now more than ever, people are thinking about topics like hope, change, community, and what our future looks like. And Rich Harwood calls for a new civic path. Michael, can you help our audience understand what the new civic path is exactly and tell us about the nationwide campaign that Rich has been on for the past 2 years? I know you touched on it a little bit, but maybe you can share a little bit more details.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to say more about this. So, the New Civic Path campaign really grows out of the past nearly 4 decades of our work, and it is sort of an encapsulation of the approach that Rich has been using all along. So it is grounded in turning outward, but I think is contextualized to the moment we're all living through. So Rich's diagnosis of where we are right now as a country, as individual communities, is that we're suffering from a crisis of belief. So we don't anymore really believe that our institutions are looking out for us. We don't believe a lot of times that our leaders have our best interests at heart. And it's even sort of trickled down to we don't even necessarily believe in one another or even ourselves at times, that we're able to get things done, that we're able to work together across differences anymore. So if that's our root problem, then for Rich, there needs to be a different kind of solution than the one that is often offered through our national or state or even local politics. And he's come to call this a new civic path. And the new civic path is documented in his book that I hope people will read. But for now, the thing that I'll say about it is, it is a sort of a framework, a method for how people can come together amid their real differences, because we're not trying to eliminate people's differences or say that they don't exist. They do. But even with our differences, there are things that we can agree on that we want to take action on. Things like youth or taking care of our seniors, making sure that every kid has a good education from birth all the way through high school and beyond. Things that matter to all of us in our daily lives that we can take action on, even amid our differences. And it starts in our local communities and then grows outward over time, which is something that we've seen throughout American history, which Rich emphasizes in the book. And so there's a number of things that go into it, but I think one of the things that is probably germane to your audience and the Patterson Foundation Network is this new civic path is really grounded in Americans discovering their shared aspirations and putting those at the forefront rather than getting stuck on our political differences or the stances that we might take if we support one political party or another, because those often get in the way of what we can actually do together in our local communities that can ultimately help transform our country more widely if we get on this new civic path together.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I find in the work we did this summer, which we'll get to in a little bit, is that we're more alike than we are different. And coming together through shared aspirations is so important. Manal, in thinking about that, maybe you can talk a little bit about some key themes or takeaways that might resonate with our audience as they explore the new civic path. And with that, if you could touch a little bit on what we heard a lot as we were doing the book circle, again, we'll get to in a little bit, is People really want a plan, and we know that Rich Harwood and this provides solutions, but maybe touch on why Rich doesn't give us all the one-size-fits-all plan.
That is a great question. And we hear that from communities when we go in. They're like, okay, so what's the plan? What can we do? How can we immediately solve this? And I think there's two parts in that really come to my brain of, why we don't approach communities in that way. One is every community is different. There isn't one size fits all approach. There isn't a strategic plan that we use going into a community initiative or going into an engagement with the campaign that we're like, this is what you need to do. These are the formulas you need to enact change. That just does not work. And it also doesn't prove to be a sustainable method where communities feel that they have they have agency over the changes that they want to make. However, we do provide steps. We never offer up when there's an introductory partnership, we're never like, we're going to immediately jump into your community and start doing all these plans and actions. We really start with a conversation. We start with the book. We start with local, community convenings, conversations. We call them community conversations and roundtables that Rich is the facilitator, but the community really gets to start talking about and with each other, what are things that they're seeing in the community. What are they wrestling with? What are the certain shared aspirations that so they can start thinking about these things? And we really root it in a civic mindset shift. We don't want to come in with all these programs without creating that civic mindset shift of you have the agency to create these changes. We are not leading those changes. So once that shift happens, that's when the action can really take place. And some communities take a longer while to get there, and some communities are quicker to want to jump into that action phase. But we always want to make sure that we are approaching communities with intentionality and like even authenticity, that community is being seen for where they're at and who they are and how they are individually. And so for us, it isn't that one size fits all, but we do offer those different on ramps so communities can engage with the new civic path in a way that makes most sense for them at the time. And we can continue building upon that. We've had instances where we've engaged with the community in a singular event where they've talked about it, and then they come back and they're like, okay, we're actually ready for more years later. And then we've had other communities that were ready at that moment. So our goal is really to continue that connection regardless, and then assess continuously in our partnership with them how we can be of support, not only of assistance, but be a really true partner with them.
I really love that on-ramp visual reference of, people are in different places and how you strengthen them in one community and people are ready in a different spot in the other community. So thanks for sharing that. So when Rich launched the New Civic Path campaign and he published the New Civic Path book, Restoring Our Belief in One Another and Our Nation, Deborah Jacobs, TPF's president and CEO, knew that TPF would have a role in bringing these conversations that could spark hope and create ripples of good in our four-county region of Charlotte, DeSoto, Sarasota, and Manatee. And we chose to host these book circles that started last summer, starting in July. We did a pilot before then and have gone on through the beginning of 2026. And people in our region were invited to attend, whether it was virtually or in person. There were 3 meetings. They were facilitated by a TPF consultant who was trained to lead these discussions. And they were having conversations with people that maybe they didn't know in their community, that also had those different beliefs that we referenced, and people that they got to know and continue to do things with after. So since you both have a national perspective, can you share with what's unique about how you saw the Patterson Foundation choose to engage in the community in reading this book? So we'll start with you this time, Menal.
Yeah. Honestly, what was really interesting and incredible to see is the growth in which not only was a series of events, but there was that culminating event that all brought it together in October. And that's actually been a model that has inspired other partners as well. And so the continuous engagement of people to that, this is not just a one and done, discussion that we're having that's kind of like an overview of the book, you really went deep. We even like worked together to really customize questions, make sure that people were really thinking about it in a way that inspired them to continue conversations, so that that book circle was really a way for people to get on the civic path. We say that we say reading the book is the first step, but the way that the Patterson Foundation was able to do the book circles was really, not only did you invite people to get on the new civic path, but you kept engaging people to continue thinking about this civic mindset, how this is a different approach. And, it has been really inspirational to see how that has grown and continued, and you just continue to invite more and more people. So it's become like what we call like a ripple effect, like you talked about as well. And this is an example of how you've done a ripple effect with a singular book that has invited so many people to not only engage with it, but engage with their local communities in a way to foster that ripple effect of engagement, but also people. You're really like in making it larger and larger of a thing. So that has been really inspiring to see.
Oh, thank you. Well, in true TPF fashion and in the spirit of, one of our touch points of fostering widespread participation, not just locally, but nationally, we shared our cookies. We're known for not keeping our cookies in the cookie jar at the Patterson Foundation. And we shared the model, as you touched on, we used here nationally. And that's from having those TPF trained facilitators to keeping the conversations focused on aspirations rather than divisiveness or politics. Just to touch on that too, to those groups that completed the book circles, they got to collectively come together and vote on a nonprofit to receive a $300 pay it forward to the nonprofit of their choice listed in the giving partner. And so that was really a great way where people who maybe had difference of opinions had a shared aspiration for the greater good. And so, Michael, on this, is there anything that you want to share on how maybe that sort of work, I know Menal touched on it, inspired more book circles across the country with their twists and their own flavor in their community? And also let us know where other book circles might be happening around the country. And we'll get to the national one, but any others
Yep.
in communities?
Yeah, awesome. So I think to build on what Manal said, the first thing I'll mention is I think the Patterson Foundation and what you all did with these book circles last year, we really see as an exemplar and as something that has really helped our campaign catalyze book circles much more widely than I think we would have been able to had TPF not stepped forward in the way it did. So all kudos to what you all pulled off and the different things that you experimented with and tried and really succeeded with, because it's pretty remarkable. I mean, one of the other things that I'll add that I think is really notable on top of what Manal said is, you really proved that these book circles can work with anyone. Like it wasn't just, the typical people who are already actively civically engaged. You had everyone from seniors to youth to mixtures of people from all walks of life. You did them virtually, you did them in person, different times of day over the weekend. So it was it ran the gamut in a really inspiring way, I think, and proving to us that, these can really fit people from all walks of life wherever they are, if it's sort of packaged in the right way and presented in the right way. So I think that was really cool to see and really proved something to us. And so now, we've really tried to take what you all did and try to run with it more nationally. So after your book circles started to wrap up towards the end of last year, there's a couple other national groups that we ended up doing virtual book circles with to bring their networks together. A different community initiative that we're working in Owensboro, Kentucky, ended up doing a series of book circles with some folks locally that very much modeled how Patterson did the multi-part series over time to go deeper and deeper with folks and to really figure out some next steps together as a group. And then just recently, we as a campaign decided that we're trying to catalyze and activate many more book circles locally. So we put out a national call to our network for groups to step forward. We've had over a dozen communities already step forward to do that, everywhere from Wisconsin to Virginia to Massachusetts. It's really all over the place, and it's all kinds of groups, which again, I think has only happened because we saw the proof that it could happen with all kinds of people and all kinds of groups. So we were able to really message it, I think, in an effective way to help these people see what the real value add could be for them and to help them step forward. So that's all really, really exciting stuff. And again, I think just goes back to the foundation and the template that Patterson Foundation set last year. with the book circles that you all did, and is really starting to take off and catalyze in an exciting way.
Great. Thank you. Will you touch on what's going on at the College of William and Mary, too? That's pretty exciting, especially going into the nation's 250th birthday.
Yeah, so this is a partnership that we're super excited about. And honestly, I don't want to steal Menal's thunder here, because this is really one of her key projects at the Institute. So I'm going to hand it over to her and let her talk a little bit more about this partnership.
Great. Thanks.
Michael's being humble because we all touch a big part of this, and it's a full team effort, as it is for them as well. So there's a lot of awesome things that we're doing with William and Mary in the partnership, but a huge part is the book circles. So, and it's a part of a series of events of engagement with them on how students and, their faculty members and people on campus can get on a new civic path. So we not only are they holding their own series of book circles they're inviting people to, but we're also doing virtual engagement with them as well. So it's a part of a bigger picture thing, and we're leading it into practical learning. We're leading it into campaign style events. So again, it's a piece of the bigger puzzle, but it is spreading across campus actively. We're seeing there's more and more people signing up, and also gives the opportunity. It's like if this date doesn't work, there's another option. It gives makes this already a low lift way to engage with the campaign even more accessible when you do it in a format that gives students and people multiple different areas in which they can engage. But also, if they miss one, that doesn't mean it's over. They can continue engaging with the book circle in different events. So we're really excited about it. It's spanning an entire year, and the book circles are going through the summer, and they're actively happening right now. And so we're thrilled about that. If there's anything you'd like to add, Michael's been also really key in making sure these book circles are reaching people and people are participating and excited in them. So.
Yeah, the one thing I'll also throw in, I think, as you mentioned, Alicia, it's the 250th, and we're quickly approaching the actual day, July 4th, here just a couple months. So I think this partnership with William and Mary is, it might have happened in any given year, not necessarily the 250th, but I think the 250th is adding a particular flavor to it, given, they're the country's second oldest institution of higher learning, over 300 years old at this point, which is pretty remarkable. And they have, since their founding, really been dedicated to training up both students, but students who are civically engaged in their communities wherever they land around the globe. And so this partnership is a key part of their year of civic learning that they have paired up with the 250th. And for us, I think, is another way for our campaign to intersect with and produce a different type of conversation around the 250th. That, yes, we should absolutely celebrate our history. We also need to reckon with the not so great parts of our history and be honest about that too. But the bigger opportunity for us, and this is part of what our campaign is about this year, is what do we need to do moving forward together? What is the real opportunity that the 250th illuminates for us that we need to seize together if we're going to make the next 250 years even better than the last 250 years in this country? And so that's a contribution that we're trying to be part of, and that this partnership is actively contributing towards.
That's great. It's really important to see our young people come together. We saw that locally here. We had youth, high school students, but seeing our young adult students come together and really have the voice. And that's the great thing about this book, is everybody's voice is meant to be heard. So that's wonderful. So whether you are someone who participated in a book circle already, or thought about it, or missed your chance, I know Menal has some exciting news to share about an opportunity coming up for the National Book Circle on June 2nd at 12:30 p.m. I'm already registered and looking forward to it. So Menal, tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. We are thrilled about this. So a couple of things. This is actually on the first anniversary of the book's release. So we're inviting people to come nationally, and people who have done book circles, people who are activating book circles right now, like Michael mentioned, we're activating new book circles. People who have never been part of a book circle, but may be interested in connecting with people after the event on a book circle, and those who've just read the book or have heard of the book. So it's really open to everybody, and we want it to be that way. This is a different kind of conversation than the ones that we do in a discussion guide that are made for local book circles. It's really to talk about the larger, what is this new civic path in terms of where we are, like with Michael talking about the America's 250th shared aspirations. How do we move together? How do we take what the book talks about and apply it for us to feel like we're agents of hope moving forward, that we can get on this new civic path? So it's a very nuanced and enriching conversation with Rich that will be broader than just talking about elements of the book. So it is actually pairs really well with folks that have done local book circles, because it builds upon the conversation that they've had in their local communities. But it's also a really inspirational conversation and a great way to meet other people across the country that are looking for a new path, a more hopeful path in this important juncture that we're at. So we're really excited. It's free registration, it's open to everyone, and it's virtual. So it's a really great way to honestly get on a new civic path and learn what this is about. If you're curious, if you want to learn more, and you want to even, interact with people that are interested in this way of thinking as well. So we're really thrilled. We would love for everyone to join us on June 2nd. You have the registration, and it's really, really easy to register. So we're excited to see everybody.
So this might be obvious, but whether I'm a school teacher in DeSoto County, or I'm a volunteer at my local community of faith, or I am a staff member at a local nonprofit, or maybe I'm someone engaging in the Harwood community conversations happening north of the river in Manatee, what's in it for me? Why should I hop on that on June 2nd?
So I think there's a couple things, and it ties back to something we actually sort of started the conversation with around the new civic path and the campaign. And, we emphasize that this new civic path has to start locally, but we don't think it ends there. We think it ends with, it doesn't really ultimately ever end. It's a journey, but it arrives at wider national change eventually if we do this right. And so part of what our campaign is trying to do is to really make that connection between the local action and the national change that we're seeking together. And one of the ways that we try to do that is through these kinds of events. So for people in local communities and the local book circles, which are so valuable because of the ways that we can start on this new civic path locally, this national space that will put people in virtual rooms together, but in rooms together that are from totally different walks of life, totally different parts of the country with totally different experiences, but coming together because there's this shared aspiration that we can do better and be better, and that they've engaged with this new civic path. Like that is a way for us to feel like we are part of something larger than ourselves, and that we are going together somewhere in a shared direction. So I think that's it's an important opportunity, particularly at a time when, as Rich writes in the book, that some folks may recall, we're suffering from an epidemic of loneliness, which is probably no surprise to anyone listening to this or just sort of living in our country today. And so one of the ways that we need and that we hope we can help combat that is to provide these kinds of spaces that put people in conversation together, to really help them foster relationships with each other, to create new allies, to spark new ideas about, oh, you're doing that over here. Maybe we could do something like that over here too, locally, and then spread those kinds of things nationally. So I think that's one of the reasons that we're holding this kind of space, and that we hope people participate in it. But that's not the only reason. I'll let Menal say a little bit more about other things that people might get out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a fantastic answer. I think, Alicia, like you're mentioning, people are engaging in the community and in this work in different ways. Like it may be just they've read the book, or they're doing really intense work in their community initiative already. So why would someone who's already in doing it join this book circle? Or why is someone who's never heard of this join the book circle? It kind of meets everyone where they're at, like we started in the beginning, where it's a conversation wherever you're at in your work within the community, wherever you're at with your capacity. It's a low lift way to actually not only connect with people nationally, but also learn from people nationally and just discuss the foundation of why we're doing what we're doing. It's going back to the why, which sometimes that is easy to lose when you're so in the trenches every day, regardless of, what you're doing. It's even us doing the work. We have to step back and be like, okay, what is the why? And this campaign and this event addresses the why. And really our goal is to really just provide a space for not only conversation, but inspiration for people to move forward in the way that which they're called. There's no specific action. Also touching on what we talked about, there isn't a specific roadmap of, okay, you've been to this national event. Now we want you to do this and do this and do this. It's really like, okay, you have been here. You're already maybe doing something in this realm, or you may be doing something in this realm. How can you integrate, the conversations and what we've learned in the new civic path to what you're doing now, or what something new are you interested in? Are you interested in, putting this in a practical approach, which is more of our schoolwork, or are you interested in, continuing conversations in your local community and where Ridge can come and advance conversations on the new civic path with your local community? So it's really a spark for folks to come together and then take that inspiration and move where they feel most called to.
A spark. I love that so much. Thinking about hope, it's a word we hear so much. It's something we're clinging on to in the community, in the nation. And so, spoiler alert, one of my favorite parts of the books, but a really important part of the book is being agents of hope. Will you talk a little bit about that and what that means?
Yeah, and I can jump in if you don't mind, Manal. Uh, yeah, so that's one of my favorite parts of the book as well, Alicia, and I come back to it frequently. And I think something that I've often heard Rich say that isn't necessarily explicitly in the book, but that is sort of implicitly there, is that each of us faces a choice when we wake up every day, whether or not we are going to be um, an agent of hope and producing authentic hope in our sphere of influence in our communities, or whether or not we're going to, consciously or subconsciously peddle false hope and let false hope prevail and win the day in our sphere of influence and in our communities. Um, and part of what the New Civic Path is about, and part of what it means to be turned outward, is to be conscious of that choice. Not that we're always going to get it right, not that we're going to be the perfect agent of hope every single day of our lives, because that's not realistic or possible, but that we are aware of how we are showing up, how we are impacting those around us, how we are trying to live out our values. And hopefully that means spreading hope and spreading authentic hope in the lives of those around us. Because that really is a key part of this new civic path. People need more hope in their lives. We need more hope in this country today. Um, and if we are able to see and hear one another, if we're able to take action on the things that matter to people, we can build and spread that hope in our own lives and in the lives of those around us.
People need more hope today. What a quote. That was a great way to get towards the ending. So thank you for sharing that, Michael. That really resonates, I'm sure, with everyone. So as we wrap up today, Menal, Michael, first of all, thank you for being here. But let me open up the floor. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up or share with us today about your work at the Harwood Institute for Public Innovation?
I would like to ask you a question, Alicia.
Oh.
So post, the book circles you did and, engaging with folks across a series of months on this and the culminating event, what are some things that you really heard that really resonated with people when it came to engaging with each other with this local book circle, but also the book in general? And kind of what are you seeing now in terms of, I don't know, if it sparked that kind of hope for folks?
What a great question. And it really was an honor and privilege to have a front row seat to all of it. We did facilitator check-ins every month where we got to hear what was going on in the book circles and how they saw the ripple effects and those sparks happen, along with facilitating my own book circles. Really, that epidemic of loneliness that Michael touched on as well, you heard that a lot. And that was through the different ages that we talked about. So even our youth who, are just starting out their lives, to our seniors and everyone in between. But seeing people come together, a few examples that I can think off the top of my head. And a group that I facilitated, someone in the group ran a nonprofit and they had a client looking for something to, she was a seamstress and needed materials. And one of the book circle participants' wife was an artist who dealt with fabrics and they were able to connect and do things. One of the book circles in DeSoto County, people who maybe some of them knew each other, it's a small town, but some didn't, decided to have a Thanksgiving celebratory lunch together. We have a group that was facilitated with a group of women who were really concerned about things happening in the school district in Sarasota County. And really, the new Civic Path book ignited a fire for someone to come together to say, this isn't about politics, this is about students. And now they've created a Facebook group to really advocate for education in the community. So those are 3 quick examples. But there were many of them. So we're so lucky to do this work and see the community come together in civic dialogue and have these conversations that are so important that have been lost. So especially coming up on the 250th birthday of our country. So it couldn't be better timing. So thanks for asking that, Manal.
Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, those are clear examples of ripple effects happening in real life. And actually, that's what it means to be an agent of hope. I think when you think of agent of hope, sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, or feel really tasked to do something grand to provide hope for the large community. But it's those small, small things that really add up and actually create that community change that people don't even realize that they're doing in the moment. But you add all those up and then it actually creates a sustainable difference. So that's really fantastic to hear. And thank you for sharing that.
That's right. And what I loved, you mentioned the culmination event earlier, that after the book circles, we had it locally and all of our groups came together to celebrate. And so many people were so excited to see each other. They're saving seats for each other. It was open
Love that.
seating. Like, I haven't seen you. Let's catch up. So it's back to that connection and moving forward with small acts that make a big difference. So, Michael, do you have anything else to add before we wrap?
Sure, I'll throw out just 2 quick things. First is just, once again, expressing our gratitude. I think, we're really thankful for the Patterson Foundation's historical partnership. We really love everything you all do with the book circles, and feel like we're off to the races, sort of on the coattails of what you all pulled off last year. So thrilled for how that's all played out. And then the second thing that Menal already mentioned, we hope everyone joins us on June 2nd, 12:30 p.m. for our National Book Circle. We love people to be there. We think it'll be a really neat, inspiring event for folks to be a part of. And it's just an hour, so you're not taking up too much of your day. We'll be in and out in an hour, and it'll be worth your time.
And you can have lunch if it's at 12:30. Just bring your lunch
Absolutely.
on it. So, yes.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure. Thank you for all the work you do to make a world a better place.
Thank you. Thank you so
Alicia.
much for having us.
Listeners, if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or another streaming service, to register for the virtual New Civic Path National Book Circle event on June 2nd, visit theharwoodinstitute.org/upcoming events, or use the link in the description. For those watching this podcast on YouTube, go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen to register, or check out the description. And if you're curious to learn more about the Patterson Foundation's work to strengthen people, organizations, and communities in ways that foster widespread participation around shared quality of life aspirations, please visit thepattersonfoundation.org or use the link in the description.